Hi, it's Tony from the Heritage Line here, and as you may have guessed, this video is all about figures. Now there's lots and lots of little figures you can use for your model railway, and as you can imagine there's lots of different manufacturers as well. Now when you go into your model shop, you may go in, you'll see some figures. The chances are, if it's a reasonably stocked shop, you might see some Farish figures. They're the ones on the block, they're the English figures. But there are other companies out there as well, especially a lot of the European companies. And there are a few English companies as well if you don't know about them. Now then, why are we talking about figures? Well, there's a lot of newcomers to the hobby and they don't know where to look, they don't know how much they are, they don't know the different choices. And this is more about pointing you in the right direction. I will be showing some of the digital figures as well. Might give you a few ideas of what there is out there. And there's a little other option in there as well that you may not even considered. So we're going to talk about figures. Now in my mind, a figure is what makes the layout. It's the little dioramas. For instance, you may have a window cleaner or a window. And yes, you can get that figure. Or you might be like John, ex-Haven Harbour. He likes his golf. You can get some golf figures. There's an idea for you, John. And there's all sorts of figures. You may want a building that's been on fire. So you may have a smoke generator there pumping out smoke. Naturally, you can need some firemen. Yes, you can get firemen. You need an ambulance crew. Yes, you can get an ambulance crew. You know, and you can also get the police as well for the scene. You could make a massive scene of a burnt out house, and that's a little diorama. That's what brings the layout to life. And this is what we're going to be looking at, the different aspects of figures. Now, in my mind, yes, there's a lot of nice engaged layouts out there, guys. You've seen many of them on YouTube. But there's one in particular that sticks out in my mind, in Engage. And he actually uses his figures to tell a tale. And it's by MacLeod. Now you've heard of Piddle in the Marsh, I'm sure you have. If you haven't, have a look at his channel. Piddle in the Marsh. He likes to rant about the Engage people. Good on you, Mark. Anyway, he does something called Tales of the Piddle Folk. I'm going to give you a link down below. Well worth a look. Yes, it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, it's a bit of English humour, but it's all a bit of fun. And he uses his figures to tell a tale on his layout. The Innocent Tales of the Piddle Folk. It's brilliant, guys. And it gives you an idea of the little dioramas that can be achieved. So well worth a look. Take a look. Right, so on that note, we're going to crack on, get into this video, and I hope that you all get something out of it. I hope it's of use to some of you, and happy modelling. Now, to me, a figure, essentially, it's what makes the railway. The first port of call, in all honesty, for a British layout, would be the Graham Farish figures. Things like this. These are the police security staff. These are typically British. You've got the old Bobby in there, you've got a few females in there, you've got some security staff, and that is what makes it British. Another favourite of mine, the locomotive staff. These are brilliant. These can go into your steam locos. If you've got a decoder in the cab, these can help hide the decoder. And it's another way of making that train come to life. Now, you get generic figures. If you've got a figure standing or a figure sitting, it doesn't matter where you buy them in the world. It could be an American figure, it could be a European figure, a British figure. People are still people. They may wear different things, like you can get the Kato figures and some from Japan, and they're obviously Japanese, and they may not fit in with your region, which is fine, but a lot of the others do. So these are the Graham Farish figures. So it's worth looking at their range first if you're doing a British layout. So the next people I'd like to talk about is, we'll go on to PD Marsh. PD Marsh, they make an excellent amount of figures. The metal figures. This is how a lot of the British companies worked. They worked in metal die-cast figures. This is typically a white metal figure. Now PD Marsh, you can buy the PD Marsh figures and you can get them painted and you can get them unpainted. Now I realise there's some modellers out there that don't like painting figures, which is fine, and there's some out there that are quite happy to spend the time painting figures. But PD Marsh, they do a large range of figures, well worth looking at their website, and they've got painted and unpainted figures. And they have other bits and pieces too. They have playground sets and other little scenarios that you could use to make a scene. And that's really what you're trying to do on the model railway, is make a scene. So PD Marsh, that is probably another good port of call to go down. Right, while we're on about the British manufacturers, I would also like to mention Langley. Langley models, they've been around for years. And with the Langley models, they also make the white metal figures. I believe you can get some of them painted, and you can certainly buy them unpainted. And they also do things as well, so it's well worth looking at their website. Langley models, they've been around for years. Now some of these castings from these metal people can be a little bit dated, but all in all, they are good quality figures for what you get, and they paint up nicely. And to be honest, when you've got a little tiny figure and you're looking at a figure, you're looking at it from quite a distance anyway, so you're not necessarily going to see all the detail. Now on YouTube we obviously video our layouts. Unfortunately the camera picks up everything and it will see the details, but that is just the nature of the beast. So we have the Graham Farish figures, we have the PD Marsh figures, we have the Langley figures, and I mean I've used I've had ducks from these manufacturers, I've had all sorts of bits and pieces. Another figure, not around really these days, but we've got the Fleet Line figures by Gem. I've had these years. Again, these are more metal work figures, these are welders. But one of my favourite things, as you know, is my little fetish in model figures. I go around, I look at the figures, I think of the scenes I want to create on a model railway. So those are the Farish figures. Now then, as you know, each year I do a calendar, and it's by Knock, and Knock do a tremendous amount of figures. These figures here, these are all the drinking figures, and it's nice. You got a pub scene or something, brilliant. You got some drinkers. What else have I got here? I've got service personnel, we've got waiters, we've got vendors, we've got I've got all sorts. I've got somebody selling some papers in there. I've got a wench there selling a beer and all that sort of stuff. Brilliant scene, just what I want for my market. So that's another option, the Knock figures. Again, I'm going to chuck some more images up now, show you some of the figures that are available. And these things are what make the layout come to life. If you've got a church scene, you might want to have a wedding, and these companies, they produce different faiths of weddings. So you might have a Protestant wedding, you might have a Catholic wedding, and you'll have the bride and the priest. You might want to do a funeral scene, you know, and there's lots and lots of scenarios you could do outside a church. And believe me, these are being done time and time again. But it's your model railway. You set the scene. You decide if you want to do these things. Now, we've talked about the Knock figures. But what some people don't realise is you can actually get unpainted Knock figures. This is the 53985 unpainted figures. And in here we get all sorts. We've got a lot of sitting down figures, we've got standing figures. And to be honest, this is a cheap way of buying figures. You buy a pack of them. I've got essentially 4 sets of figures in there. That's about £12. That's probably about £3 a figure it works out at. This, I believe, was probably about £18, £19. I've got 72 figures in here. And yes, they're going to need painting, but then the figures become a lot cheaper. And to be honest, when you start doing the coach lighting, these are the type of figures you want to be looking at. Because if you was to populate a coach, there's no way you could afford to populate a coach with that type of figure. No way, it's just not practical. So you'd look at something like this. But there are other options. But these are not figures, these are the unpainted figures. Well worth a look at. Right then, we're going to go on to another company now. And I think the next big ones are Prizer, or Prizer, however you want to pronounce them. What have I got here? These are actually the same set of figures. But these are a bit more of the risque figures, you could say. You've got a few ladies there, a little bit scantily clad. You've got like a woman in a Mac who looks like she's going to batter somebody with her envelope. The guy there, possibly a pimp, I don't know. There's some flashy guys there. And, you know, this makes a nice scene as well. It could be quite interesting what you could do with the Prizer figures. They also do other figures as well. You know, you get your animals, you get all sorts of figures from Prizer. Well worth a look. Again, it's a European company, but they do lots and lots of choices of figures. I've had all sorts of figures from them. I've had some ambulance crew. What else have I got here? Just things laid about. I've got the workers. Yes, other companies do workers as well. That's an ambulance crew with some paramedics in there. That's something a little bit different, you know. So lots and lots of different choices there from Prizer. Oh, that reminds me, Prizer figures. Prizer do a very big range of unpainted figures as well. Now there's like 125 in a box. And they're about £25. This is probably a couple of boxes in here, and they come on sprues like this. And as you can see, this is just an example. Now there's some figures here that are going to be no good. I've got some station staff here. He's waving something, security. He's carrying some baggage. Don't know what that guy's doing. But again, a lot of these figures, I could cut off that button and I could put him inside a coach. And once he's in a coach, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't see any difference. You know, these figures, they're very, very nice. Essentially, what you do is you do a little bit of surgery, chop off the legs, stick in the bodies, job done. So, yeah, these are some of the prizes. And when I do figures, I tend to, if I haven't got a sprue to work off, I glue them onto, like, one of these stirrers, and I just work down them. And I work down if I'm not happy with them, and I just sort of paint them as I go along. Well, look, there's an example. Langley. There's me ducks. They're what I use on Swade's Pond, painted up. So, you know, you've got to look at these different figures. I mean, what else have I got in here? There's some stuff that, yeah, I've got cows in there. They won't go in a coach, obviously. But you never know what else you're going to use. I mean, There's all sorts in there. There's children. I mean, there's some stuff you won't use, or you may use. You've got washing lines in there. You know, that's all good for back scene. I've got workers. Anyway, they're the price of figures. Another company is Fala. I don't actually have many Fala figures. But Fala, again, look through the range of figures. It may give you some ideas for some scenes. Fala is very, very good. So far we've looked at the knock, we've looked at the Fala, and we've looked at the prizer. These are the European figures. So now we're going to talk about American figures. And Batman do something called the scene accent figures. And essentially they've got a lot of Americanized figures. They've got things like the hobos, the things like the shoe shine, which are typically American. You got people out there that barbecuing. You can get an American football team. Talking of football teams, I believe it's either Fala or Prizer. They do an English football team or soccer. Ones in America, they do a baseball team. So there's lots and lots of other choices. You can get all sorts. Now what I tend to do, because you know I have a fetish in figures, I have a little box like this. And what I've done is, I saw this somewhere else, it's a brilliant idea. But you can see all my different figures in there. If you look carefully, I've actually wrote down roughly what some of them are. So, for instance, this set are for winter. I've got males, males, females, females. The special figures, I've got all sorts in here. I've got the bikers. I've got some sunbathers. I've got some ladies of the night. Yes, you know, I might have some camera people in there. Then I've sort of got on to sitting people, personnel, loco crew, working figures, animals. That's just full of dogs and cats. Lots of dogs and cats. And then of course I've got the bigger animals at this side. And I've got lots and lots of children. So yeah, that's my box of figures. So when I've painted up all my figures, put them in there, and then when I actually get to doing a scene, I can just pick out what I want, and away we go. So these are the better figures in here. Now another option, and I can't skirt around it, we've all seen them, and that's these lovely fluorescent, I'll say fluorescent, let's zoom in a little bit. There we go. These are your Chinese figures, we've all seen it, and they look very, very bright, don't they? They look horrible, to be honest. And that's just how they are. But these figures again, I've got some more in here. These are all made in China. And there's like 100 figures in there. Pick them up for like a fiver. A fiver. When you might be paying something like, for these, you could be paying, what did I pay? Near enough €10 for that, for 6 figures. I can get 100 figures for a fiver. And to be fair, these things, you don't like them, you can always repaint them. Now these are what I would call background figures. If you've got a big crowd, you can knock a few of these out. These figures are more for your forefront where people can actually see them on the layout. These, incidentally, brilliant for putting into the coaches. The cheapest chips. You only have to sort of paint the top half if you wish to paint anything at all. Go into the coaches, populate your coaches with them. So these are brilliant little sets of figures. Now then, what they don't tell you in China is you can actually buy Chinese unpainted figures as well. So it's trying to paint, sometimes it's hard to paint already painted figures. It can be a bit like, oh, I'm not sure about that, I'm not sure if I'm doing it right, and you can't get your head around it. You can buy unpainted figures as well. These again, there's probably 100 in there. Again, I think I only paid like a £5. You are a bit limited sometimes with the Chinese because you might only get like, there might only be 10 different figures in all. But by the time you've painted them up, you don't really notice. So they're your Chinese figures. So again, these you pick up off AliExpress, I assume. Definitely get them off eBay, which is where I've got them. And Amazon as well, you know. These are very, very handy for filling out big scenes. Right then, this is another type of figure that you may not have considered before. These are actually wargaming figures. And again, these I think are 12mm figures, or 9mm, 10mm figures. But essentially you get lots and lots of different, these are all metal, these I picked up second hand. As you can see, you get somebody on a stretcher. We've got some infantry guys here. And to be fair, when these guys are painted up, they don't look too bad. So these would be alright for a war scene on your railway. Or you could have a reenactment day or something like that. So yeah, that's another option. Not everything is suitable, obviously. I mean, that is no good for anybody. Not in our scale. I mean, that's probably T-gauge, if anything, I would imagine. But yeah, you can see lots of different figures. We've got some lying down figures. And, oh my word. They're actually figures. Don't know what I'd use them for. But I picked these cheap. I'm only going to be using so many of these. But yeah, army figures, the wargaming figures. If you're doing a war scene or you want something a little bit different, you know, you might decide that in a field you're going to have a reenactment scene. You might want a Napoleonic battle going on. It's something different. So there you go, guys. That's another option as well, wargaming figures. Now then, while we're going on about figures, I want to start talking about the 3D printed figures. And the first one, these are off eBay. I think they were called fine scale figures. And there's a sort of some modern day-ish figures in amongst this. I can't really tell at the minute until I take all these strands off, actually get to the figures. I'm not really sure how much detail there actually is in these figures. To be fair, there doesn't look like it's a great host of detail, but they are what they are, and I thought I'd try it because 3D printed figures are definitely part of the option as well. So I think they were fine scale figures, something like that. But if you want some quality 3D printed figures, I've gone and I've looked at Model U. This is Richard Watson. We've probably all seen him on the Railway magazine. You know, he's on the Hornby, better known for New Junction, building a brilliant layout. And there he is. And in my opinion, the camera's not doing him justice, but that is actually a really, really nice 3D printed figure. Engage, very, very tiny, but that's going to come up superb. And he will have a place on the layout. Not Swades Pond. I've got him earmarked for somewhere else, but he's going to have a place on the layout definitely. And something a little bit different. We've got Santa Claus here. And again, he's there. Try and get him into focus. I can't really... let's take him out, shall we? Let's just take him out. Let's have a closer look at this. So there you go, that's Santa with his sack. And that's actually got some really, really nice details on it. A little bit of flash, but no, that is going to look really, really good. I do have plans for Santa, but that's many, many weeks away. But yeah, there we go. So you got Model U. You may have seen these at exhibitions, some of the bigger exhibitions. These guys in the big setups, you go to Wally, I believe they're at Wally, these guys will actually sit you down and take a 3D print of you. You can dress up into all sorts. You can actually go to Bristol and you can actually be scanned. And you could actually, if you really was in that frame of mind, have a model of yourself on your layout. And as you can see, they go down to 2mm. This is N-gauge. But I mean, obviously you can get these in O gauge and you can get them in double O gauge. And to be honest, I'm very, very impressed with them. That is really, really nice. Not cheap, but there again, something like that, it's a one-off. You got a special place, it's a hero figure. That's purely what it is. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about making a scene on the model railway. So hopefully I've given you some ideas now of places you need to look at, scenes that you can create, and hopefully, you know, you can do a good job. The only downside I would say in N-gauge is because there's a smaller amount of modelers in N-gauge, there's a small amount of range of figures. People like Fowler cater a lot more for the 00 figures. And it's just the nature of the beast, I'm afraid. You know, it's demand and supply, I suppose. But at least we do have some choices. And hopefully, guys, this is actually giving you some choices. So, we'll catch you on the flip side. And we'll see you again on another time. Bye for now.